In a small town where life flowed as smoothly as a river, there was a family that at first glance seemed ideal. Alexei and Maria had been married for 5 years. They met at university, and their love seemed like a real romance. Common interests, traveling together, supporting each other in difficult times, all this created the illusion of a strong union. However, deep cracks hid under the surface of this ideal life. Alexei, working in a large company, fell victim to constant stress and dissatisfaction at work. He often stayed late, returning home tired and irritated. Maria, in turn, felt lonely. She worked as a freelancer and spent a lot of time at home, which only increased her feeling of isolation. One day, at a party organized by mutual friends, Maria met Igor. He was a charismatic and self-confident man who knew how to attract attention. They quickly found a common language, and a spark arose between them. Igor was the one who knew how to listen and keep up a conversation, unlike Alexei, who was often immersed in his own thoughts and worries. At first it was an innocent conversation, but soon Maria began to feel a strong attachment to Igor. He was becoming not only a friend for her, but also a source of new emotions and sensations that she lacked in her relationship with her husband. She understood that this was wrong, but at the same time, feeling a lack of attention and love, she could not stop herself. Maria began to meet with Igor more often under the pretext of working on a joint project. These meetings became more and more intimate, and soon she found herself trapped in her own feelings. She knew that she was betraying Alexei, but at the same time she could not resist the attraction to Igor. One day, when they were alone in Igor's apartment, they kissed for the first time. It was a moment that changed Maria's life forever. She felt excitement, fear, but at the same time, liberation. From that moment on, their relationship became more serious, and Maria found herself on the verge of a break between two worlds. Alexei, unaware of what was happening, continued to live his normal life. He noticed that Maria had become more withdrawn and often spent time at the computer. But he attributed this to her work and had no idea what was really going on. At the same time, his own worries and stress at work were accumulating, and he increasingly began to resort to alcohol to cope with the stress. Maria, in turn, felt more and more guilty for her actions. She could not forget that she had a husband who loved and trusted her. But at the same time, she could not give up Igor, who had become a symbol of freedom and passion for her. She was in constant conflict with herself. Time passed, and her relationship with Igor became more and more intense. They spent nights together, discussed dreams and plans for the future. Maria felt alive and wanted, and this feeling overshadowed all the others. She understood that this could not last forever, but every time she was about to break off contact with Igor, he found a way to convince her to stay. One day, when Alexei returned home earlier than usual, he discovered that Maria was not at home. He felt anxiety, which quickly turned into panic. He started calling her, but she did not answer. A fire of mistrust flared up inside him. He did not know what to do and decided to wait for her return. When Maria returned, she was clearly agitated. Alexei, unable to restrain himself, asked her where she had been. She tried to come up with an excuse, but his persistent look made her suspect that he knew something. At that moment, she realized that her world was beginning to collapse. A few days later, Alexei found messages from Igor on her phone. It was a shock that turned his life upside down. He felt his heart squeeze with pain and betrayal. That evening he made a scene with Maria. She tried to explain herself, but every word she said only made his anger worse. Alexei couldn't believe that she had betrayed him with another man. After that, their relationship became unbearable. They tried to talk, but every word turned into accusations and reproaches. Alexei didn't know how to live with the fact that his wife was cheating on him. Maria, in turn, felt deep guilt and despair. She understood that she had destroyed their family, but she didn't know how to fix it. Eventually, they decided to see a family psychologist. At the first session, Alexei was full of anger and resentment, while Maria cried and begged him for forgiveness. The psychologist helped them understand that their relationship needed a deep rethinking. They began to work on themselves and on their couple, trying to restore trust. As time went by, Alexei and Maria began to open up to each other. They talked about their fears, expectations, and feelings. Alexei began to realize that his own problems at work and lack of attention to Maria had become the catalyst for her betrayal. Maria, in turn, realized that her not only physical attraction, but also emotional hunger. The psychologist suggested that they set new boundaries and rules in their relationship. They began to spend more time together, opening up to each other. Alexei became more attentive to Maria, and she, in turn, tried to support him in difficult moments. Gradually, their relationship began to recover. However, despite all their efforts, the shadow of betrayal continued to hang over them. Every time Alexei heard Igor's name, he was overcome with a feeling of jealousy and pain. Maria understood that this was normal and tried to be patient. She knew that restoring trust is a long and difficult process. After several months, after many conversations and joint efforts, they began to feel that their relationship was getting stronger. Alexei learned to let go of resentments, and Maria realized that her love for her husband was still alive. They both realized that the betrayal had become a lesson for them, which made them look at their relationship in a new way. Although the road to recovery was not easy, Alexei and Maria began to see light at the end of the tunnel. They realized that their love could be stronger than ever if they worked on themselves and their relationship. Cheating was not the end for them, but the beginning of a new stage in life, full of hope and possibilities. They grew closer to each other with each passing day, and although the scars from cheating still remained, they learned to live with them. Alexei and Maria realized that true love requires work, patience, and a willingness to forgive. And although their story began with betrayal, it led them to a deeper understanding of each other and strengthened their bond. In the end, they became not just husband and wife, but true partners, ready to overcome all difficulties together. Their love, despite the trials, became stronger, and they were ready to face the future together, knowing that each of them is not only part of a couple, but also an individual, capable of making mistakes, but also of forgiveness.